Hey guys, Matt Allen, Tim Little. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. Today what we're talking about is where do these fish go when they disappear on you in the summer and the fall. A lot of people struggle during those seasons, but this is absolutely prime time to catch these fish. So where do they go? Where should you be looking? Where do you start? How are you gonna start catching fish in the summer and the fall? Let's jump right into it.
Summertime is all about transitions. Transitions from mud to rock, transitions from chunk rock to boulders, from grass to mud, current to calm water. Bass really key around those transitions this time of year. So when you're out targeting these fish, if you have electronics, that's a huge advantage. If you don't, we're gonna give you some tips as well, so stick with us. But here you can already begin to see on the outside we're all mud. On the inside we're starting to turn into just chunk rock, small pieces of rock. We're gonna get up alongside some really large boulders here. These are these key areas that you wanna focus. You don't necessarily wanna fish right up in the heart of the rock or out here on the mud flat. You wanna be right on that transition, right where it's making the switch. As we get into these boulders, it'll be even more vivid where these fish should be setting up. Another thing to consider, it's the middle of the day, it's 10:30. Electronics have come so far the last few years that even out here, bright sun with side imaging, which is generally a lower light picture, we're still able to see incredibly well in the middle of the day. Now here you're seeing giant boulders coming into play. This bright positive image, that's the face of the boulder, and then you see the shadow behind it. The size of that shadow tells us how huge the boulders really are because it can't even see beyond them. They're giant boulders. So these fish are going to sit right on this transition, right where that rock began. And then on the outside, it's going to be the exact same thing. When you get to the far edge of the boulders, we're even seeing them out here on the outside, out in deeper water. When you get to this outside edge, that's the other large accumulation of bass. They're gonna be right on those transitions. Now at an area like this where you can see that clear transition making a point, the cast that you're going to wanna make, ideally, you wanna be parallel right down both sides of that. And then here as well where the boulders stop, you wanna be parallel right down the edge of that rock so that your bait is in the strike zone for as long as possible, staying right where those fish are. And if you see these highlights here up in the water column, those are the fish literally sitting right on that break. You can see them clearly standing out, sitting right on that transition, right where they need to be. So the way you would approach this is to make a parallel cast right on the transition. That's going to keep you in the strike zone for the maximum amount of time, right where the fish are. As we're idling down this stretch, an area that we fish all the time, we've side imaged this before. We just found a new boat that we've never seen here before. A boat sunk, got stuck on the bottom. You can barely make out the boat. The shadow is the giveaway because you've got that negative image behind the positive boat, so it shows it clear as day. There it is on the bottom without zooming in on it. We had no idea that was even there on a spot that we fish all the time.
Now for those of you that don't have electronics or you're shore bound, this part is for you. Electronics give you a huge advantage. They do, there's no way around that. But they're not a must-have. What you need to do is look for those visual cues on the shoreline. So here, you can see this transition from the tules into the beach and then into the boulders. That's your area. If you're coming down this whole shoreline, you want to fish this transition. Now right up ahead here, this is the area that we were just looking at underwater. You can see this giant rock point come out, big boulders that just break off to deep water. You don't need electronics to tell you there are bass on that point. The electronics show us the exact cast, the exact angle that we need to be making out here on the transition. You won't have that, but clearly just by looking at the shoreline, looking at the contour, you can see where you need to be. You won't get that perfect cast, but you'll get everything else. We're gonna run around the lake a little bit, look at some of the other places that you wanna be, those areas that might have grass on them, those current breaks, things like that, those key spots that these fish are gonna be, and then we're gonna start looking at where those fish transition to in the fall. Now right now we're actually still in the same area. Tim picked up a rod. The reason that we stayed here is this is one of the key areas on this lake that also gets a really good current break on it. If your fish use current, so if you're in a fishery where there is current, if you're on a river system, if it's dammed up, this is for you. Your life is easy. Summer, fall, doesn't matter, your life is easy. What's going to happen on those fisheries is you're gonna go out and you're gonna find the corners. Areas like this where the current has to move around them, that's your spot. Because there's current flowing, the bait will naturally come to those areas. The bass don't have to work at all. They know that, so they're going to set up right on these points. All you have to do, fish parallel to the point, and you will pull those fish when they're up feeding. Now the downside is that in any fishery that has current created by a dam, sometimes they turn that dam off and they stop that current. When that happens, there's no easy way around it. The fishing is going to be tough. This morning, we've got a little bit of current, but it's not running as hard as it will be here in a few hours. But we'll see if Tim can get bit here. I'm not sure if the fish will be staged up yet. We might be a couple hours early, but if he does, it's gonna be right out there on the end of that point. Now, bite or no bite, you can see here how that water is going to move all the way around that point. This is critical. On your fishery, whether you have giant points like this or you just have small bends in the shore, you can find the areas that the current has to pass through, and that's the spot you're going to be fishing. Looks like these fish haven't set up yet. Hoping we might pick an easy one off the end just for kicks, but we're gonna keep moving, looking at some other areas, see if we can show you some more spots where these fish are gonna show up. Looks like I turned that camera off just a little too quick. Swung around the other side. Tim plucked one off the break on the back side here. Just throwing a square bill, just getting one of those fish that's setting up to get into that current.
Another key transition area is the transitions from shallow water to deep. Anywhere where there's a quick break, that's a key summertime area, because these bass in the mornings, they will often get up on top of these spots. We're up here in 8 feet up on top of the rock. In the morning, they're gonna get up there on top, feed aggressively, and then as soon as that high summer sun comes out, you start getting that heat, they'll immediately fall off that break out here into the deep water and sit on the outside where that rock meets the mud. So it's a quick transition, a place where they can feed heavily and still get to safety without having to travel long distances. That's a key area to look for, especially in that midday, middle of summer, hot weather.
The last place that we're going to look for these summer fish is in the grass. Now you've got all sorts of different kinds of grass around the country. Here we've got different underwater grasses, and we've got what we call tules, which are a lot like bulrushes or cattails. But grass is a key area. Now grass, it can be in little areas like this, or it can be in giant flats. If it's in giant flats, you want to fish the edges of it. Again, those transitions. If it's in an area like this, you want to fish the front edge and then the back edge, back there where the grass meets. So where it's transitioning from one kind of grass to another. Now, of course, there are all sorts of other areas that summer fish could be. We didn't even get into docks and shadows and things like that. But these are key areas. We know that we've got confidence. If we go from lake to lake to lake, state to state, these are areas, finding those transitions where across the board, no matter what kind of fishery it is, we're gonna be able to find fish in the summer. Now let's go look at some fall stuff. Now these areas that we've been talking about for summer fishing, these are areas that we're gonna be focusing on with crankbaits, jigs, going down and worming when we need to. Those grass edges, you can throw the frog on that or other topwaters. But now transitioning to fall, this is one of the key areas that we're going to look for. There are basically two areas you're going to target on any fishery. Now, whether you're on a reservoir or a larger pond or a man-made lake, a natural lake, it doesn't matter. Wherever you are, the fall is all about bait. Those bass are going to be feeding up, eating as much as they can before they go into winter. What you're looking for, now before we were talking about transitions for the summer, we're still talking about transitions, but it's a transition of a completely different kind. You're going to look for areas on the bank where bass can force bait fish, whether that's shad, minnows, doesn't matter, any bait fish, where they can force it into an area and corral it and keep it there. So here we've got this backwater that goes back. Now this goes in there about 100 yards in dead ends. This is a key structure that you are looking for in the fall. Once the bait get in there, the bass can seal off this opening and they'll hold that bait there for as long as they want. So you can catch these fish here on the transition or back in the back. The only other area that you really need to focus on in the fall is changes in the shoreline. A lot of times what these bass will do is get that bait right up shallow. So that bait will naturally go shallow on its own and then the bass hold it right against the bank. So anywhere on the bank that there's a contour change, anywhere, whether that's a retaining wall that comes out, a natural point in the shoreline, anywhere where there's that transition, that's an area where the bass can hold the bait more easily than on the flat shoreline. That's what you're looking for. Those changes and these backwaters or coves or creek mouths, anywhere where the bass can get the bait in, seal it off and hold them there. In the fall, you can still get them on topwater. Topwater is a great option. You can also transition to that crankbait, to the swim bait. There are all sorts of great options for that fall fishing. I'm sure we'll be shooting more on that very soon. If you guys enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon.